Welcome to week 5 of Methods for Teaching the Academically Gifted. This is Dr. Bimwat at McNeese State University, course Education 688. And this week we're focusing on exceptionalities in technology. Please make sure that you are doing the coordinated reading, the Education of the Gifted and Talented, Chapter 15, and Teaching Gifted Kids in Today's Classroom, Chapter 8. All right, let's go ahead and dive in, where our focus turns this week to two essential and intersecting areas in gifted education: exceptionalities and technology. We'll explore the needs of the twice exceptional students, those who are both gifted and have another exceptionality, sometimes referred to as a disability. So I'm going to use the terms interchangeably, but we really need to think about it as an exceptionality, and how technology can be used not only as a support tool, but as a bridge to equity and creativity, not only for 2E students, as we like to refer to them, but also for all of our gifted students. Rim's chapter sheds light on the paradoxical nature of twice exceptionality, emphasizing the importance of recognizing strengths alongside challenges. And Weinbrenner and Brule's chapter complements this by highlighting how technology and innovative assessments can provide more accurate, flexible measures of ability and performance. So together, these two perspectives help us plan instruction that is both inclusive and forward-thinking. All right, our objectives for this week focus on deep understanding and practical application. We'll unpack what it means to serve twice exceptional students, learners who they really defy traditional categories. You'll also explore how technology can support both assessment and instruction in ways that allow students' true abilities to shine. The goal isn't just to use tools, but to use them intentionally, to remove barriers, support autonomy, and provide creative outlets for gifted students with diverse learning profiles. You'll see how these ideas come to life in a classroom example and how they align with the National Association for Gifted Children's Standards for Inclusive Evidence-Based Practice. RIM defines twice exceptionality as the coexistence of giftedness and one or more disabilities. These students often present a paradox: high conceptual ability alongside academic, behavioral, or social difficulties. For example, a student with dyslexia might generate brilliant ideas, but struggle to record them in writing, which is often necessary for many tests. RIM notes that strengths can mask weaknesses, leading to misdiagnoses, or weaknesses can overshadow strengths, leading to under-identification of giftedness. 2E learners frequently experience frustration and perfectionism, especially when expectations don't match their performance. The key takeaway is that these students require dual differentiation, and I would actually even argue tri-differentiation. This is instruction that accelerates for their giftedness and enriches based on strengths, while simultaneously scaffolding or remediating areas of challenge. And additionally, as I mentioned, this dual approach demands flexible planning and close collaboration among teachers, counselors, families, and other stakeholders. But the reason I say that it's tri is because it's a really unique juxtaposition of giftedness and also learning disabilities. They truly are their very own type of exceptionality. And strategies that work with giftedness and strategies that work with learning disabilities oftentimes have to be modified for this very special population of students. RIM emphasizes that instruction for 2E learners should start from a strength-based framework. Identify where the student shines: creativity, reasoning, problem solving, and build learning experiences that leverage those strengths while addressing deficits through supports. Flexible grouping, as we've mentioned, I think every lesson this course, allows gifted students with disabilities to collaborate with intellectual peers while receiving targeted support. Individualized goals should balance academic rigor with emotional well-being. So when we're thinking about grouping, one of the things I want to express to you is that you really have to be thoughtful, very intentional when you consider grouping for some of our 2E populations, because they simply are going to express themselves differently than their gifted peers many times. For example, when we are considering gifted plus autism spectrum disorder, really be thoughtful and purposeful depending on how that 2E student um, expresses learning, expresses social and emotional needs. Sometimes they do not want to work with a group, and that's something that you really want to keep in mind. They might not even want to work with a partner at times. So this is what I'm talking about, where it really is almost a try exceptionality, in the sense of sometimes they may want to, but other times they may not. And you really need to be flexible and adaptive in those circumstances. Assistive technology can be transformative. So speech to text tools to help dysgraphic students, audiobooks support reading comprehension, visual mapping software can really aid with organization and graphic aids. Additionally, executive function support, such as very structured routines for certain types of 2E students, visual schedules, checklists, it really helps reduce the cognitive overload and allows them to focus on their intellectual and creative pursuits. The goal is to create a learning environment where 2E students experience both competence and challenge rather than compensation alone. And this is a sweet spot that you really have to work very closely with a network of stakeholders, because every 2E student is different. So now let's just kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about technology as an equalizer. And this is one of the practical application pieces that I really love about the Weinbrenner and Brule's work. It highlights how technology, when thoughtfully applied, can transform how we assess and engage gifted learners. Adaptive technologies such as online learning platforms and AI-based writing tools can individualize pacing and feedback, allowing students to move beyond standard-based measure of performance. Digital portfolios, for instance, allow students to showcase growth and creativity over time, not just test scores, because many times they're going to be at the very tip top of what we measure for particular tests. And they may start the school year that way with you. So you have to have a way for them to grow and a way for them to demonstrate their learning with a different type of metric and expression. And technology allows that. For 2E learners, so now let's kind of showcase this one perspective that we were previously talking about. These tools can actually act as great equalizers, giving them new ways to express their knowledge. For example, a student who struggles with handwriting might create a multimedia presentation that demonstrates complex analysis. Technology also encourages autonomy and self-direction, key traits of gifted learners. Brules warns, however, that technology should enhance, not replace, teacher insight. The most effective integration comes when teachers use data and digital tools to inform authentic relationship-centered learning. So I think this is really important as we see the rise of online learning and AI-driven learning. We need to be really thoughtful about how we're using it with all of our students, but especially 2E students who may also struggle with some social integration needs, some interpersonal skills. Simply letting AI or some sort of technology tool sort of become a semi-teacher or a substitute teacher for them could really hinder their social growth in ways that are going to be very meaningful and important for them as they matriculate through life. So keep that in mind. It can be an equalizer, but it really cannot be a substitute. Let's look at this case example. Mr. Ramirez teaches 7th grade STEM, where his robotics unit becomes a model for integrating technology and inclusion. Two of his students are twice exceptional, one with ADHD and another with dyslexia. Instead of modifying down, Mr. Ramirez differentiates up, focusing on engagement, creativity, and access. He introduces assistive tools like speech-to-text programs for documentation and online design platforms that reduce fine motor strain. A visible visual schedule helps all students track project milestones. Mr. Ramirez uses flexible grouping so students can take on roles that suit their strengths: programming, design, research, or presentation. The results are striking. Both 2E students exhibit improved self-regulation and collaboration, and their final projects show conceptual mastery comparable to their peers. This case underscores RIM's point that meeting exceptional needs benefits all learners, not just those with identified disabilities. And ultimately, that's what we're striving for. Through the NAGC lens, it's important for us to consider how Mr. Ramirez's classroom actually aligns with multiple standards. So, for example, Standard 1 calls for recognizing that gifted learners exhibit diverse cognitive, social, and emotional profiles, including twice exceptionality. His design acknowledges that giftedness and disability coexist without diminishing either. Standard 3 emphasizes using evidence-based instructional strategies. His use of technology enables both access and depth of learning. Standard 4 underscores creating environments that are emotionally supportive and intellectually engaging. Mr. Ramirez's emphasis on flexible grouping and autonomy fosters belonging and confidence. So this is what I was talking about being flexible with those things. Reflecting on this technology becomes more than a tool. It's a medium for empowerment, giving students ownership of their learning while preserving high expectations for complexity and creativity. So this is just one example of the way that integrating technology to support 2E students can be highly meaningful for the 2E students, but really for everyone. So let's refer back. If you'll remember, this week you have Journal Prompt 5, and it invites you to think deeply about inclusive practice and technology as a support mechanism for exceptional learners, including those who are gifted, twice exceptional, or have learning challenges. Begin your reflection by describing the context, the subject, age group, and student diversity in your setting. Briefly identify one or more students with unique learning needs. Use pseudonyms or descriptors like a student with dyslexia or a gifted learner with ADHD. For the first question, focus on how you intentionally plan for inclusion. Draw from RIM's Gifted Children with Disabilities to discuss the importance of recognizing asynchronous development, where giftedness and disability coexist, and how that shapes lesson design. What adaptations, scaffolds, or structures ensure access for all? Examples include providing tiered reading materials, flexible pacing, or varied output options like visuals or speech-to-text tools. Reflect on how you create psychological safety, ensuring all learners feel valued and challenged appropriately. For the second question, explore technology as a differentiating force. Connect to Weinbrenner and Roulet's discussion of technology in assessment and instruction. Highlight one or two tools that elevate differentiation. For example, adaptive learning platforms like Freckle, IXL for readiness-based progression, digital portfolios, so Seesaw, Google Sites for authentic demonstration of mastery, or assistive technologies, text-to-speech, visual organizers, AI supports for accessibility. Discuss how these technologies promote independence and equality. This is also a great time for you to talk with a special ed teacher at your school about some of the technologies that they may use. Even though some of the special ed teachers may not support all of the gifted students, they do actually support the 2E students, and you might not even be aware of that. But what they're using with their special ed students can translate really well to support 2E students as well as all gifted students, to be honest. So I want you to use your classroom or your field setting as evidence. What have you done? What would you like to try? What have you seen done? What were maybe possibly some missed opportunities? Include one short example, such as using Flipgrid for reflective dialogue or Nearpod to scaffold complex texts. Then analyze how this practice supports both ends of the learner spectrum, gifted and struggling students alike. Finally, end your reflection by naming your professional takeaway. What does equitable differentiation look like in your context? And how will you continue integrating technology to sustain it? Keep your entry focused, analytical, and anchored in this week's readings. And then as we move forward, remember that Project 4 actually goes over 2 weeks. So it's not due until the end of week 5. And now you want to make sure that you're incorporating what you've learned from this week with what you've already started for Project 4. Oh, excuse me, I feel like I have to sneeze. As you continue working on Project 4, the planning and implementation piece, use this week to strengthen your design by explicitly embedding support for exceptionalities and thoughtful use of technology. Begin by revisiting your pre-assessment and the differentiation plan you developed earlier. Ask, does my activity truly meet the diverse needs of all students, including those with exceptionalities? Using insights from REM et al., identify specific ways to support twice exceptional students. Learners who may be gifted but also have ADHD, dyslexia, or sensory sensitivities, or some other need. For instance, if your project involves independent research, provide flexible pacing options and digital scaffolds like speech to text or visual mapping tools to ensure access. If your activity centers on creative problem solving, offer multiple modalities for expression, video, digital art, interactive simulations, so that each learner can demonstrate understanding authentically and in a way that highlights the learner's strengths. From Weinbrenner and Brule's chapter, integrate technology, not as a decoration or another bell and whistle, but as a differentiation technique. This might include using adaptive digital platforms for readiness grouping, collaborative apps like Padlet or Google Jamboard for peer idea exchange, or formative assessment tools like Edupuzzle, Formative, even some of the Gamify ones now have some features in it that allow for assessment tools, such as like Quiz or Quizlet, to check understanding in real time. Highlight in your narrative why each tool was chosen and link it to specific student needs or learning profiles. During implementation, observe and document how technology shapes engagement, participation, and comprehension. Do students who typically struggle find greater success through tech-based supports? Are gifted learners able to extend beyond the baseline task through enrichment links or challenge tiers? Gather both qualitative and quantitative evidence, observation notes, student reflection, and performance artifacts. In your post-implementation write-up, analyze what you learned about inclusive differentiation. How did technology amplify access or independence? What adjustments would you make next time to improve balance between digital and face-to-face learning? So as you move through, make sure that you're connecting your reflection to the NAGC program standards. I've tried to give you an example in each one of the modules of how you would do that. So please go back and look at some of the previous lectures, and each one of them contains a slide that talks about how NAGC standards were reflected in that application. I particularly want you to make sure you include Standard 3 and Standard 5, so the curriculum planning and instruction one and the programming one. Show that your plan promotes equity and excellence by ensuring all learners, including those with exceptionalities, have the opportunity to grow at an appropriate level of challenge. So again, just a reminder, Project 4 is actually a 2-week project, and you're incorporating things from both week 4 and week 5 into that. Definitely check the course calendar to make sure that you are planning effectively. So as we begin to wrap up this module, let's bring it all together. Remember that twice exceptional students challenge us to think differently about gifted education. To be honest, about education in general. They are some of the brightest, most challenging students that I've ever taught, but teaching them has helped me learn so much about how to support students in ways that are individualized, inclusive, and appropriate. They remind us that giftedness is not uniform and that real differentiation involves both acceleration and scaffolding. Technology offers a bridge, expanding access while allowing personalized expression of advanced thinking. Yet the heart of this work lies in intentional design, balancing rigor with empathy, structure, and structure with flexibility. So it's a constant balance between making sure there's an appropriate challenge, by also making sure that we're compassionately designing inclusive lessons, by ensuring that there's a structure and there's scaffolding to help everyone reach the same high levels of critical thinking and achievement, but also including that we are being flexible and responsive to individual student needs. It seems like an impossible task, but you are up to the task, and that's why you are learning about how to serve these very special students. When we integrate frameworks from both of these textbooks into our practice, we honor both the potential and the humanity of every learner, both the theory and the practice. That's the essence of equity and excellence working hand in hand. As you move forward through this week, please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions about your project, your journal, or any of the readings. Have a wonderful week.